little bit closer to.
All right. Shalom, DC. We're the Israelite School of Universal Practical Knowledge, coming out of 125th Street, Harlem, New York, 1 West Harlem, New York, under Command General YAHANNA. Since 1969, we've been teaching the truth about the Bible. The truth is the Black, Hispanics, and Native Indians are all God's chosen people. Right. Everybody else is just a poser, right? Speaking of posers, today's topic, what we're going to go into today is the indigenous slaves known as the Irish. You understand? Because a lot of people love to say that the Irish themselves, they was in captivity too. Right. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people like to argue with you tooth and nail how we what we're saying is wrong because we're leaving out the Irish, right? I know personally a couple of one brother in particularly who's married with an Irish woman, right? Now, because this brother's married with an Irish woman and he has a child with this Irish woman, he would say what you guys are saying in the Israelite School Universe practice is real, right? It's true, but I can't 100% agree with you because you never bring up the truth about the Irish, right? Today we're gonna get into the truth about the Irish. Hey, Barack, I sent you an article. You got that from me, right? And speaking of this brother, the reason why this brother is saying what he's saying is because he's destroyed for lack of knowledge. Get the Hosea from me first.
Go to Wisconsin. Whenever you're ready.
Go ahead.
Go to Wisconsin. We got the book of Hosea, chapter 4, verse 6. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge.
My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. See, this brother, he doesn't know any better, right? If he knew any better, he would have never married this Edomite, right? If he knew any better, he would never try to defend this Edomite.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? If he knew any better, he would never try to defend his daughter that he had with the Edomite because he would know that his daughter come from his stock, his seed. Right. You know what I'm saying? That child is not an Edomite. If he knew any better, right? Go ahead.
Because thou has rejected knowledge.
Because you have rejected knowledge, right? You have rejected what the saints, what the prophets has told you. You have rejected what you have read, the law, statutes, and commandment that was given to you. Right. You have rejected this knowledge, this wisdom. Go ahead.
God. I will also reject thee.
I will what?
I will also reject thee.
Because of this, because of your lack of righteousness, your lack of understanding. Right. You know what I'm saying? Because of your lack of love. You know what I'm saying? What is love? Love is to do what?
Follow the law, statutes, and commandments.
To follow law, statutes, and commandments. Because of your lack of love, the Most High is going to reject you. He's going to turn his face from you.
Right.
That was it?
Go
ahead.
It's just another. I will also reject thee, that thou should be no priest to me, seeing thou hast forgotten the law of thy God. I will also forget thy children.
There will also be a priest to me. You will not be a prophet, though. You will not be a priest. Though. All that nonsense this brother was spewing about how the Irish were slaves too. You know what I'm saying? It is bogus. Right. Everything that they say in the conscious community is bogus, ridiculous, because they have rejected the Most High. Right? Now let's go to the first article I sent you.
God, so let me see. The very first one that says the Irish were indentured servants.
Go ahead.
Let's go over that.
No sweat. We're going to get into a couple of articles, right? And of course, these are not my words. These are words from Irish historians. Irish historians who are outraged, right? Because according to them, what they went through was horrific. Right. You understand? According to them, what they went through was horrific. Of course, they got beaten and so on and so forth. But as far as this Irish historians say, it is outrageous for them to take the torment that the so-called African man, the Black, Hispanics, and Native Indians, right? Because in the article, of course, they're gonna call us Africans, right? That they've been through and they make it their own, because theirs was serious, but it wasn't that serious. Right. You feel what I'm saying? Because they could, at the end of the day, they could take their how do I say it? They're indigenous servants. I'm gonna say they're boss, they're employers.
Right.
They could take them to court.
Yep.
A slave can't take master to court.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? If the master decides to kick your pregnant wife in the stomach,
right.
You know what I'm saying? Ain't no going to court. You know what I'm saying?
God.
Give me what you got.
God. We got the article. Fact check. This is on This is USA Today. Fact check. The Irish were not selected. The Irish were indentured servants, not slaves.
Indentured servants. Stop there and give me the definition of indentured servants. You know what I'm saying? Because this is where the confusion comes from. By the way, this is the Monday night history class.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? We're giving the history. We're breaking the myth on the Irish being slaves.
Right.
There's a big difference between a slave and an indigenous servant. Right. We better get the definition of indigenous servant. You understand?
God.
Go ahead.
An indentured servant or indentured laborer is an employee.
Is a what?
Is an employee.
Indigenous servant is an employee.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Remember Kanye West? What Kanye West said? Slavery was a choice. No, we was not employees. Right. We didn't go seeking this job out. You know what I'm saying?
No application.
No application. You know what I'm saying? We just got snatched and took and beaten and raped and murdered. Right. You know what I'm saying? We're not employees out. Right. You know what I'm saying? We didn't have a boss that we didn't have options. We could quit. You know what? I don't like the way Tom is treating me right now. Right. Let's see what Billy Bob is doing over there. You know what I'm saying? We ain't got those options. Read that definition again.
An indentured servant or indentured laborer is an employee within a system of unfree labor who is bound by a signed or forced contract.
Who is bound by a signed or forced contract? Is it two forks in a row, right? Read that line one more time. Who's bound by what?
Bound by a signed.
A signed. Now this signed contract. Is it? Let me give you an example, right? They come to let's say Barbados, because a lot of them was in Barbados, a lot of them was in Jamaica and Britain and stuff, so on and so forth, right? They go to that land. Irishman goes to that land. They are immigrants, right? So what they will do is they will work for a couple of years for their working papers.
Right.
That's the signed contract, right? What's the other thing they said?
Or forced contract.
Or forced contract. What is a forced contract today? What is a forced contract today? Anybody know? Oh, let me give you a hand. Let me just break it down for you. You get locked up, right? You go to prison. You making soap. Right. You making license plate. You making jeans. Right. That's a forced contract. That is a forced contract. And so in other words, these Irishmen, right? They broke some kind of law, so they give them a forced contract. They were to be slaves for this amount of time, right. 7 years. Right. You feel what I'm saying? Go ahead.
To work without pay for the owner of the indenture for a period.
By the way, if I may add, the only contract Negroes had with the slave master, right? Let me phrase myself. The Negro, they had no contract. The only contract it was from master to master, right? I sold you, Timothy or Raul, right? Because we could never forget about the Hispanic brothers. Right. I sold you, Darrell or Raul for $2, right? On March 15th. You know what I'm saying? 1639. That is the contract between two masters. The slave and the master never had a contract. You know what I'm saying? Go ahead.
A person who signs and is bound by
again. This is a person. This is the first part of the contract. They go into depth with it. This is a person who signs. I mean, we never signed any documents or any contract or any bill. You know what I'm saying? To give our life, our children, our future. You know what I'm saying? We never did that. Go ahead.
And is bound by indentures to work for another for a specified time, especially in return for payment.
Especially for return. This is exactly what I broke down in the beginning of an Irishman who decided to go in a different land, who was an alien of that land. He worked for payments. And that payment was to be a citizen most of the time. You feel what I'm saying? If it's not that, or like payment could be for food or something simple as that. You know what I'm saying? Go ahead.
Of travel expenses and maintenance. That's the end of that definition.
Okay, the water for that. You feel what I'm saying? So by definition, you could already see that the Irishman, but by the definition, right? The Irishman's slavery has been debunked. You feel what I'm saying? Just by definition.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But a lot of the people don't like to read. A lot of people lack practical knowledge.
Right.
You feel what I'm saying? This is what we in the I.S.U.P.K, the Israelite School of Practical Knowledge. This is what we do. We show you. We try to give you some sort of common sense.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because in the title of Indigent Servant, it tells you that there was not slaves. But due to the fact of all the backlash of what's been going on in the past, since the camera phone, you know what I'm saying? Since the camera phone has been put in the spotlight more so on the Edomites and the police, right? The Irishman, he felt the need to come out and say, well, we were slaves too. You know what I'm saying? Just like the Me Too movement. We were slaves too.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It was just not y'all.
Right.
Yes, it was. You said, let's go back to that article, Bubba Short. The water for the definition.
No sweat, sir. The claim Irish Americans were enslaved in the Americas and treated worse than enslaved black people.
Mm-hmm.
That's the claim.
That is a claim. You remember, just like we talked about earlier. You remember, in social media, there's a big. Matter of fact, let me show you a picture of the Irish, their so-called enslavement, right? I'm gonna see if y'all can see this. Hold on, it's too much light. Too much light.
Yeah.
Too much light. That's what it is. Hold on, I'm gonna get a little closer. I really want y'all to see this picture because I'm pretty sure we're all seeing this, right? This. Hold on. Okay, it's focusing. I'm pretty sure y'all remember this picture, right? And this picture right there, this is the picture that they're using in many of the books that they sort of write in the last 5, 6, 7 years, 10 years exactly. You ever said to say that they were slaves too, right? And this is the men that was going on Facebook that started all this. It says white Irish slaves were treated worse than any other race in the U.S. When is the last time you heard any Irishman bitching and excuse my language, it says bitching and moaning about how the world owes them a living? You know what I'm saying? Now this is the picture.
Right.
Stop. Focus.
With that camera, it takes a little while to focus, especially if you're using it.
Okay, it's right there.
You got it?
I got it.
What's on it?
You know what I'm saying? So the reason by this meme, you see that the reason why the Irish came out with this lie, right, is because of their hate of you, blacks and Hispanics. Right. You know what I'm saying? It's like, how dare you guys always talking about you guys owe me. If it wasn't for slavery, this, that, and the third. You know what I'm saying? What's my reparation? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Because they keep saying that, this is the article they gave you. In other words, Negro, pick yourself up by your bootstrap.
Right.
Right? Go back to your article, Babu Show.
Go. National protests against police brutality amid a global pandemic have caused many Americans to reckon with the country's history of racism and inequality. Mm-hmm. The moment has caused a fake historical meme to again surface.
Yeah, did what?
The moment has caused a fake historical meme to again surface.
A fake historical meme is that the same meme I just showed you just now. The same meme who claimed that they were slaves too. The same meme, excuse my language, that says you never hear us bitching. You know what I'm saying? In other words, Negro, shut up. Just like a basketball player. Right. Shut up and play ball.
Right.
Exactly. What team was that? Who didn't play?
Oh no, it was many of them teams, but they turned right back around and played the next day.
Oh, of course. Okay, and another example, Kaepernick. Shut up and play. Catch the ball, boy. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Go ahead.
God, the first, quote unquote, the first slaves shipped to the American colonies in 1619 were 100 white children from Ireland. Reads a May 21st graphic shared over 5,000 times on Facebook.
That is another meme that the Irish, the Edomites put out there. You know what I'm saying? Just to hop on the bandwagon and say, well, Me Too, the Me Too movement. You know what I'm saying? You guys cannot complain about slavery because everybody been to slavery, right? But see, the thing about that is, right? Historically, everybody has been conquered by another nation. Right. But nobody ever been to captivity the way we've been to captivity.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? When it comes to the scriptures, it talks about us to a T. It says in Deuteronomy 28, you will be going on back to Egypt by way of ship. Me paraphrasing. You know what I'm saying? That is not talking about them. Right. That is not talking about the Chinese. It's not talking about their brother, the Amalek. You know what I'm saying? It's not talking about them. You know what I'm saying? Go ahead.
Right. Like also, if I may add on, what you're saying is absolutely heavy, sir. Like Deuteronomy and Leviticus give it all. You take Deuteronomy, you actually look at it, you know what I'm saying? The Irish and the rest of these nations, their history wasn't discontinued. Their language wasn't discontinued. Their culture, their way of life was not discontinued. They all have a nation that would fight for them. They were not
all had the military.
They were not cut off from being a nation. They were, they still live on and they still know their history. And A, B, C, and D, they're not called it, as the scriptures say, they're not called a byword and a proverb like Israel is. They maintain their history and culture. And the thing is, like, they own up to it. Like you just said at the beginning of the class, it's so heavy. You said, that this is, we talking about myth. And these articles we bringing out is by Irish historians. And they telling you, don't you dare compare us to them, monkeys, to them wetbacks and spicks. You understand? What we went through, it was, A, B, C, and D, but it wasn't that. You know what I mean? It wasn't that, or whatever the case may be. You know what I'm saying? So what you were saying was absolutely heavy on that part. So they don't fit. No other them, nor any other nation fits what the scriptures say.
Any description of that
or any historic context in the sense of our captivity.
That's 100% right. Go back to the script on the article. What we saw.
Gone. Truth matters. The meme also says that, quote unquote, the Irish slave trade began with James II sold 30,000 Irish prisoners. 30,000 Irish prisoners,
right, as
slaves to the New World.
It says they sold 30,000 prisoners, right? But again, this is like the second part of the contract. They was criminals. Like I said, truth matters. I used to have a saying I used to say all the time, right? Words mean a lot. Right. It didn't say it sold slaves. Right. It said prisoners, right. People who broke the law. Right. You know what I'm saying? Just like today, right? If anybody ever been in prison, like you get transfers. You don't ask for these transfers. They will say, hey, dummy young, pack up. Like, where am I going? I don't talk to inmates. You know what I'm saying? Right. It's a transfer. You know what I'm saying? You sold to a different county jail. Right. They are being sold to somewhere else. But they want you to believe that's not what's happening here. You know what I'm saying? Go ahead.
Salagia too, sir. Go ahead. If I may, Salagia. You just said with the words thing, right?
Right.
You look in that same sentence, it says Irish prisoners as slaves to the New World. The fact that you're calling it the New World says that it was already established before then. So how are you going to say that, these are the first slaves brought to the Americas?
Right.
And you just said we bringing 30,000 to the New World. You ain't say we bringing them to a land that nobody dwelt. And no Christopher Columbus was searching with his thing to put prisoners on that island. You know what I mean? Like, right. It was already established that, this existed and we know where we're sending them. It wasn't like we just going to banquet, banish or whatever, 30,000 prisoners. we sending them to a certain location that we already know about.
Right.
It just said that.
In other words, we sending you from Rikers Island to all the way to California. You going to Pelican Bay.
Right.
That's what's happening. You know what I'm saying? Go ahead.
The Facebook page defending the heritage wrote, quote unquote, Ireland quickly became the biggest source of human livestock for English merchants.
Ireland became the quickest source of livestock. Let's be for real about it. Of human livestock. What happened to us? I mean, the translated slave trade. I mean, that should be the number one in everybody's list, right? But they're making it seem like the Irish been through more than us.
Right.
They trying to make it seem not at first. It sounded like they're trying to make it equal, right? But they say they're the biggest. Words mean a lot. It was more horrific than us. You know what I'm saying? The real Holocaust of the Jews, of the blacks, Hispanics, Native Americans. Go ahead. This is like this is just Esau again trying to exalt himself up over everybody. You know what I'm saying? Go ahead.
Where it say human livestock, and none of the Irish had a bounty on their head like the Native American Indians spend money on their head.
No.
None of them. So if you just say that was human livestock and just miss out that in the 50s y'all had a bounty, a bounty on the Native Americans' heads.
What the brother said, well, Barack Officer 500 said it was heavy. Right? Not only that, livestock. What do you do to livestock? You brand it. You know what I'm saying? We got branded. You know what I'm saying? Native Indians, Negroes. You know what I'm saying? Hispanic, bro, we got branded. We was real live cattle. In fact, what does the Constitution says? You were what? 3/5 of a man? You're 3/5 of a man. That means you no less than what? Livestock. Yep. But Irish, they're the chiefs of police. They firemen. This, that, and the dirt. You feel what I'm saying? Again, this is Esau trying to put himself up high.
Right.
But that was it on that?
No.
Go ahead.
The majority of the early slaves to the New World were actually white.
The majority of the new slaves. Give me Malachi 1 and 4. Let's get some scriptures in. You know what I'm saying? We've been reading for a while. Just like I said earlier, this is Esau trying to put himself up high. You know what I'm saying? He has no care in the world. He in his mind is, you know, whatever happens to me, I'm gonna come back and rule anyway. You know what I'm saying? Go ahead.
You said Malachi
1 and 4.
Come. The book of Malachi, chapter 1, verse 4. Whereas Edom said, we are impoverished.
Whereas Edom said, keep in mind that Edom, Esau, Edom, right, is the progenitor of the Caucasian race. Right. You know what I'm saying? Which again, Irish, the Irishman or Caucasian. You know what I'm saying? They are Caucasian. They are also part of this oppression, because they are brothers with Amalek. They are brothers with Russia and everybody else. Right. How could they shun themselves and I say, nah, we've been through the same thing under whose reign? Mm-hmm. Your brother showed you brotherly love. You know, he told you after a certain time you could be free. After a certain time your debt will be paid. But as the Negroes though, they was forever. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Go ahead.
So like go ahead. Point, none of the presidents in history, I think it was Thomas Jefferson was famous for one of them quotes. Mm-hmm. What had said quote from Thomas Jefferson that he felt black people are meant to be slaves. They cannot. I'm paraphrasing it, but he said that they were meant to be slaves, and they should always be in the mindset of, you know, they can't survive on their own.
Right.
This is a quote from Thomas Jefferson. And once again, this wasn't ever, you know, said towards the Irish.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like the president, you was in his land, the presidents and their leaders never said, you know, y'all were meant to be slaves, as they said to the Negroes.
Right. That's a fact. You know what I'm saying? Okay. And the sidebar, I mean, if I teach class on history class on Monday, we're gonna get into the slavery. You know what I'm saying? We're gonna get into the 20 Negro law. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah.
Go ahead.
Whereas Edom said, we are impoverished.
Well, Edom saying what?
We are impoverished.
What are the Irish saying? They ain't impoverished. You know what I'm saying? Why? Because they were on the sideboard with that, right? The Irish saying that they owed they was in capitalists and so on and so forth, and the misconception because a lot of these college students they're the one who wrote this article too, right? The problem with that is historically, right? They're forgetting every white Edomite nation felt that way. You know what I'm saying? Just like I said, we're gonna get into history next Monday of slavery. A lot of wars happened because a lot of white poor people hated the rich white people. You know what I'm saying? It was always in New York, a white man, and he told me, he asked me, was the Mexicans out there taking all the jobs too? I looked at him. I'm looking at the man like you, like 7 years old. You can't get a job. Who's gonna hire you? But the rich white man was not gonna have no time to be hiring no white man to put money in his pocket. What they could get you to do it for free. You know what I'm saying? So that built a you, right? Go ahead.
But we will return and build the desolate places.
We'll return and build in the desolate places, the places that we lost, the places that are empty, that can't, that nothing grows. Go ahead.
Thus saith the Lord of hosts,
Mm-hmm.
they shall build, and I will throw down.
Yep. The Most High said they will build. Yep. They're gonna build. They're sure gonna build, but I will destroy it. I'm gonna throw it down. Go ahead.
And they shall call them the border of wickedness.
They should call them what?
The border of wickedness.
You see how wicked it is for another nation to try to not only are they culture vultures, right? Everything you do, they want to take it from you. You know what I'm saying? The way you walk, they want to walk like it. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying it's cool to sag your pants, but Esau see that, he gonna take that too. You saw a rapper, he wanna do that too. R&B was came from. I don't know if anybody know that, right? The way they sing, you listen to what R&B singers, Gerald Levert, Teddy Pendergrass, Casey and JoJo. The way they sing, that comes from gospel music. You know what I'm saying? Even though we don't do gospel music, right? But they hear that, they want to take it too. You know what I'm saying? Even our pain and torment, sorrow, they want that too. Damn, Barack, a nigga can't have shit. So excuse me. You know what I'm saying? We can't have nothing. You know what I'm saying? Go ahead.
God ought to work up. That's a lucky. The border of wickedness, and the people against whom the Lord had an indignation forever.
They are the people who the Lord, the Most High Power, have indignation forever. He has hatred for them forever. Right? And keep it the sideboard. The Christians always say, everybody like to say, right? The Most High doesn't hate. I mean, he has indignation with them forever. Right. You know what I'm saying? Go ahead. Then not drop that. Go back to what you was at Bubble Shop.
An article.
Come.
Various examples of the meme appear on social media, each claiming that the Irish were enslaved in the Americas and treated as brutally or worse as African slaves.
Go ahead.
There are, quote unquote, there are many stories, newspaper articles, theories, denials, omissions, cover-ups. Quote, the Facebook page, The Irish Factor, told USA Today about its claims. The page cited British involvement in the slave trade as explanation for the claim posted on its page.
Now, what are they talking about? The British slave trade was also one of the pictures I showed you of Barbados, because British was over Barbados at one point. Go ahead.
Claims that Irish people were enslaved in British North America are a long-standing myth and online meme, sometimes associated with neo-Confederates and white nationalists.
It's associated with what?
With neo-Confederates and white nationalists.
Damn, shocking. You know what I'm saying? Right. Shocking, right? No, it's not. Right. You know what I'm saying? Who else is going to be who's going to conglomerate together? You know what I'm saying? Who else is going to confederate together? You know what I'm saying? Against you. The same people who always been doing that. Right. You know what I'm saying? Who else is gonna try to take not your shine but your sorrow out? Right. Your pain? Right. Come on. I can't say ow. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? You gotta say my back hurt too.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Go ahead.
The claim, which experts say is often politically motivated, is untrue.
Was it what?
The claim, which experts
say this,
say is often politically motivated, is untrue.
Experts say this. I mean, I don't know about you out there in TV land. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But us out here in I.S.U.P.K, Israelite School Universe Practical Knowledge, we all experts.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I did not need this Irishman to say this. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But some people needed what's the saying? Want to hear from the horse's mouth.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's often what?
It is often politically motivated.
It's often politically motivated. You know what I'm saying? Politically motivated.
It's untrue.
It's very untrue. Go ahead.
Irish indentured servants in the colonial Americas. The claim that Irish people were enslaved in the British American colonies stems from a misrepresentation of the idea of quote unquote indentured servitude.
It is what?
The claim that Irish people were enslaved in the British American colonies stems from a misrepresentation.
It's a misrepresentation. Just like we broke that when we first thought, what we did was we broke that in definition, right? Misrepresentation. They didn't have no idea what it means, right? They read the word servitude. You know what I'm saying? Indentured servitude, and they had no idea what that meant. So what they said was, we were slaves too. They had no practical knowledge, Barack. Go ahead.
Indentured servants were people required to complete unpaid labor for a contracted period.
Okay, his definition again. Go ahead.
Quote unquote. While the majority of Irish people will become while the majority of the Irish people who became indentured servants in the colonies did so willingly.
Did it so what?
Willingly.
Willingly, yeah. These Irishmen who claims that they were slaves, they did so willingly. See, when Kanye West says slavery was a choice, he was talking about the Irishmen. I understand Kanye West.
Right.
He could not have been talking about us.
It makes sense.
You know what I'm saying? It makes sense, right?
Yeah.
But I wish he was talking about the Irishmen.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But all jokes aside, the Irishmen, they willingly did these things. Why? Because like we said earlier, because a lot of places there was immigrants. They needed to be citizens.
Right.
And that is a form of being a citizen. They did something for a pay. They got paid. Now they cool. We got no payout.
Right.
We got whips.
Right.
Chains.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Go ahead.
Come. Did so willingly. Why they felt they had to do so is, of course, another question. A not insignificant number.
It's another question. Where is that another question? You know what I'm saying? But go ahead.
A insignificant number were forcibly deported and sold into.
Hold on. Let's bring that back. He said, what he said, why they felt they had to do so, of course, is another question. Right?
Right.
This is Esau not understanding why his brothers chose to do something like also piss poor. You know what I'm saying? Remember, when it's us, what do they say? Pick yourself up by your bootstrap. Why didn't the Irish pick themselves up by their bootstrap? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Why didn't they pick themselves by their bootstrap?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Go ahead.
A not insignificant number were forcibly deported and sold into indentured servitude.
And not what? And not what?
A not insignificant number.
And not insignificant number. In other words, those were the criminals. Those are the ones who didn't volunteer. You know what? Let me work for what's mine.
Right.
Those are the ones who crack people's heads open. Let's not act like. Let's not forget. Right. A lot of people always talking about how. Right, this is a fact that we learn a lot from the white man. This is a fact. You know what I'm saying? Everybody was taught they gangster. Man, who's more gangster than Esau? You know what I'm saying? The way we talk, right? A lot of the things we say, we got it from where? The mob. You know what I'm saying? The Italians,
right?
Irish cousins.
They family, right? But let's not forget about the Irish mob.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Those are the individuals who broke the law, who had to go get a different contract.
Right.
They have to go to prison and do labor. They got sold to the next land. Say that again? Next bidder.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But at a certain time, 5, 7, 8 years, they was free. Right? The only people, right, who try to justify that is those with a lack of knowledge. You know what I'm saying? And of course, you got all the other nations, right? Those who agree with this abomination, with this theory, with this myth, right? They would say, well, they was a slave too. Everybody else is a slave. But there's gonna come a time. It's gonna come a time when they're not gonna say that. It's gonna come a time when they're gonna look afar from Esau, right? From the Irishman who's claiming to go through the same woes, right? Woes mean destructions that we've been through. But in fact, hold right there. Give me Revelation 18, right? Because it's gonna be a time. Revelation 18 and 9, right? Let's get some scriptures. We were reading for a long time, right? It's gonna be a time where Esau is gonna fall, right? He cannot make up no lies or stories no more, right? And everybody who supported him is gonna look from afar and they're gonna mourn him.
That's right.
You dig what I'm saying? Give me what you got.
God, sir. The book of Revelation, chapter 18, verse 9. And the kings of the earth who have committed fornication and lived deliciously with her.
And the kings of the earth. Who is the kings of the earth? The kings of the earth. I mean, like, we shouldn't have to spell it out for anybody right now, but for those who don't know, those or the oppressors, right? Those are the children of Esau.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Who runs everything? Babylon, the daughter of Babylon, America,
right.
Europe. You know what I'm saying? Go ahead.
God, sir. And live deliciously with her, shall bewail her, and lament for her, when they shall see the smoke.
Read that one more time.
God will come. Who have committed fornication and lived deliciously with her, shall bewail her.
This is the nations who live deliciously with the oppressor. Deliciously mean what? They got fat when we were starving.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Everything. Matter of fact, we're all from the hood here. Every corner is what? Chinese takeout, you call it in DC.
Right.
Chinese store.
Right.
Chinese restaurant, every corner. It's a liquor store who's ran by who? Moab. Ham. You know what I'm saying? They got fat while we starved. 7-Eleven is owned by who? You know what I'm saying? They got fat. Subway is owned by who?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? They got fat while we starved. They lived deliciously with Esau. Go ahead.
God, sir. And live deliciously with her, shall bewail her.
Shall do what?
Shall bewail her.
They're gonna cry. They're gonna mourn. Go ahead.
And laments for her.
Right. Go ahead.
When they shall see the smoke of her burn.
They're going to cry. They're going to mourn for daughter of Babylon, right? When they see they are up in smoke. Go ahead.
Standing afar off for the fear of her atonement, saying,
they're going to stand far away because for the fear of her atonement, hopefully they're going to be so afraid. They're gonna fear for her, but they're not gonna come closer lest the same thing happen to them. You know what I'm saying? Go ahead.
Standing afar off for the fear of her torment, saying, alas, alas, that great city Babylon, that mighty city, for in 1 hour is thy judgment come.
Go ahead.
And the merchants of the earth shall weep and mourn over her.
And the merchants of the earth. Who was the merchants of the earth? Who's weeping? Ham has stores everywhere. I mean, Elam has stores everywhere.
Right.
Moab.
Yeah.
Ammon.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? They have stores everywhere. They're going to weep for Amalek. They're going to weep for all of them. Go ahead.
And the merchants of the earth shall weep and mourn over her, for no man buyeth them merchandise anymore.
Read that one more time.
And the merchants of the earth shall weep and mourn over her, for no man buyeth their merchandise anymore.
The only reason that they got so fat while we starved, right? Because Esau, right, the oppressor allowed them to flood our neighborhoods with their merchants, their merchandise. You know what I'm saying? With their merchandise, Louis Vuitton, Gucci, all the things that we can't afford, but we are the main ones buying. You know what I'm saying? Those are all over the neighborhood.
Right.
But it's gonna come a time. It's gonna come a time. And Facebook and social media, they always say, "Oh, shop black-owned business." It's gonna be a time. It's nothing but black-owned business.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? It's gonna be a time. It's nothing but Hispanic business. Hispanic food. Oh my goodness.
Yes,
You know what I'm saying?
Forget about it.
Forget about it. You know what I'm saying? It's gonna be a time. That's all we buy. It's all we support. On the contrary to Dr. King, who told us, you know what?
Get out.
Let's go sit in a white establishment and get embarrassed in front of our ribs, our wives. Let them pour milkshakes on our heads. What was the outcome of that? The outcome of that was years later, 30, 40, 50 years later, we crying for black-owned businesses.
Yep.
Where were we shopping before Dr. King? Right. Dream. Where were we shopping?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Where were we eating? We had our own restaurants.
Right.
What should we sacrifice our pride and dignity and go to a white establishment so he could put God knows what in our food? Let's go back to the scripture.
Go on, sir. And the merchants of the earth shall weep and mourn over her, for no man buyeth their merchandise anymore.
Right.
The merchandise of gold and silver and precious stones and of pearls and fine linen and purple and silk and scarlet and all thine wood and all manner of vessels of ivory.
Sidebar on the color purple, right? The color purple originated from a land called Tyre, the Hamite. You know what I'm saying? They got famous for making, they sold a lot of things, but one of the things that they sold was purple. Purple was a rare commodity. They can say, oh, rich people bought it. You know what I'm saying? That's why it was called the gay apparel. You know, it make you happy when you had it on back then. You thought you was fly. You know what I'm saying? But go ahead.
And silk and scarlet and all thine wood and all manner of vessels of ivory and all manner of vessels of most precious wood and of brass and iron and marble and cinnamon and odors and ointments and frankincense and wine.
See, basically, this is everything. What the scripture says in Deuteronomy 28, but you're going to go to them, to your oppressor, for one of everything. You know what I'm saying? And this is telling you, at the time when Babylon falls, you're not going to go to them for nothing. Everything they were selling, right? Forget about it. They're gonna look for fall at Babylon fall. I mean, the person who put them up high above us, they're gonna fall. They're gonna be like, damn, we can't sell nothing now, bro. You know what I'm saying? Negroes ain't buying. Go ahead.
And cinnamon and odors and ointments and frankincense and wine and oil and fine flour and wheat and beasts and sheep and horses and chariots and slaves and souls of men and the fruits that thy soul lusted after.
Go ahead.
And the fruits that thy soul lusted after are departed from thee.
Everything that you lusted after departed from them. Go ahead.
And all things which were dignity and goodly are departed from thee, and thou shalt find them no more at all. The merchants of these things, which were made rich by her, shall stand afar off for the fear of her torment, weeping and wailing. I'm just saying the same thing again. You know what I'm saying? Because you know how people destroy for lack of knowledge. Sometimes the Bible got to say it twice, because he just said the same thing in verse 9. You know what I'm saying? The merchants stand afar, so the what shall weep. Go ahead. And saying, alas, alas, the great city that was clothed in fine linen and purple and scarlet and decked with gold and precious
that was just like the example I gave you of purple. That was clothed in fine linen. You feel what I'm saying?
Go ahead, read that again.
And precious Salakia. And saying, alas, the great city that was clothed in fine linen, and purple, and scarlet, and decked with gold, and precious stones, and pearls. For in 1 hour, so great riches is come to naught, and every
The great city that was so fly, if you understand, that was decked out in fine linen, purple and gold and silver. In 1 hour, they was laid away.
You understand? Go ahead, Sluggy.
For in 1 hour, so great riches is come to naught, and every shipmaster, and all the company in ships, and sailors, and as many as trade by sea, stood afar off and cried when they saw the smoke of her burning.
What scripture you on?
18.
Go ahead.
Saying, what city is like unto this great city?
What city was like that city, you know? You know what I'm saying? What city? Again, we're talking about the Irish people, the Irish nation, who's saying that they was enslaved too, right? And a lot of people love to jump on their bandwagon and say, you know what, they were slaves too, they were this and that, but you want to be on the side of weeping them as well, right? Go ahead.
And they cast dust on their heads and cried, weeping and wailing, saying, alas, alas, the great city, wherein were made rich all that had ships in the sea by reason.
Okay, let's pause right there. Let's jump down to 20, Baba Kishore.
Rejoice over her.
Rejoice over her. He's not talking the other nations here. Go ahead.
Thou heaven, and ye holy apostles and prophets.
He's telling us to rejoice over what's going to happen. You know what I'm saying? When these other nations who go out of their way to enslave us, you know what I'm saying? Who go out of their way to be culture vultures, who go out of their way to take our sorrow and pain, like the Irish claims that they was enslaved. You know what I'm saying? Who want to be just like who was out their way to steal everything you do. Rejoice over her. Prophets, rejoice. Go ahead.
God. And for God have avenged you on her.
For the Most High have avenged you. It wasn't you. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't you. It was the Most High power. He have avenged you. Go ahead.
Verse 20.
Verse
21. And a mighty angel took up a stone like a great millstone, and cast it into the sea, saying, thus with violence shall thou great city Babylon be thrown down.
The same way the angel picked up that great millstone, the great millstone, and violently cast it into the ocean. You know what I'm saying? With the same force and just as swiftly, the oppressive nation will be destroyed. You know what I'm saying? There will be no more. Just like everybody who worshipped them stood afar and weep for them. In 1 hour they were destroyed. They said, alas, alas. 1 hour. Go ahead.
God, sir. And shall be found no more at all. And the voice of harpers and musicians and of pipers and trumpeters shall be heard no more at all in thee. And no craftsman of whatsoever craft he be shall be found any more in thee. And the sound of a millstone shall be heard no more at all in thee. And the light of a candle.
You stop right there. There shall be no more. You know what I'm saying? Their rule, their reign shall be no more. They're not gonna have no music, no what do you call that song? The ice cream truck song, having the mockers and stuff like that. The national anthem song. You know what I'm saying? They won't have none of these songs. You're not gonna hear what's this thing called? I pledge allegiance to what? None of that's gonna happen. That national anthem.
Amazing Grace.
Amazing Grace. You know what I'm saying? None of that's gonna be no more. They have to have no more songs.
You know what I'm saying? Let's get back to the article, Baba Kishore. No sweat. You know what I'm saying? Again, if you're just tuning in, this is the Monday night history class, and what we're discussing is the debunking the myth of the Irish slaves. You know what I'm saying? Go ahead.
I believe I found it. A not insignificant number were forcibly deported and sold into indentured servitude. Liam Hogan, a librarian and historian known for his work dispelling the Irish slave myth, told Pacific Standard magazine in 2018.
In other words, he's a reliable source.
Right.
He's known for his work.
Go ahead.
Many indentured servants in the British colonies were working class white immigrants from the British Isles.
In other words, I was gonna say something different. These Edomites, right? They had jobs out. They were working class.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? They was not slaves. Slaves, just like to them, like Kanye West, slavery was a choice. No, they had jobs out.
Right.
The whole notion of slavery was a choice. Joke, you know, joke is ridiculous.
Right.
These Edomites was never slaves. It was from the working class.
Go ahead.
Were working class white immigrants from British Isles, including thousands of Irish people. Indentured servants were
Indentured service, again, indentured servants is not a slave. It's people who chose to sign a contract to work for a specific amount of time, or criminals, right, who had to work off their debts. Go ahead.
including thousands of Irish people. Indentured servants were often treated horribly by their masters, many dying before they were set free.
Okay, see that right there? They were treated horribly and many dying before they were set free. See, somebody watching this, an Irish fan watching this, I'm gonna say it, got you there. But we're gonna get into that. You know what I'm saying?
We're gonna get into that. Go ahead, keep reading.
God, sir. It's a lot. During their quote unquote, during their period of servitude, their treatment varied widely. Some suffered extreme violence and brutality, especially the Irish and the Caribbean, but many had avenues to pursue legal action against their masters.
Many had what?
Legal action.
They had avenues, they had ways. They had ways to pursue legal actions. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah, okay. Some of them was mistreated. Some of them died. But what they had, a slave could never have, is avenues to find what? To pursue legal actions. Go ahead.
And even to add that, if they had avenues to pursue legal actions, you know what else that means? They had rights. We ain't had no rights. We ain't have no rights.
Ball game. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is it, man. You know what I'm saying? They had avenues to pursue legal actions.
Right.
They had rights.
Right.
What slave you don't have rights? You know what I'm saying? Ball game. You know what I mean?
In the class.
Hey, go ahead.
Had avenues to pursue legal action against their masters.
Mm-hmm.
Something never extended to the enslaved.
Something what?
Something never extended to the enslaved.
Something never. See. This is distinguishing a difference between the Irish and what's the word? Indentured servant, right? And a slave, a Negro. You know what I'm saying? A Hispanic or a Native Indian. This is different. See, Esau, his brother could take you up to trump up charge on you, take you to court. You know what? He worked me from sun to sundown. I ain't get no breaks, right? In fact, I believe that's what the union was created for. You know what I'm saying? But a slave has no union now. A slave could not take you to court. He can't.
Read that line one more time.
Con out of one con.
Read.
But
many
had avenues to pursue legal action against their masters.
Right, go ahead.
Something never extended to the enslaved. Matthew Riley, an archaeologist who has studied white communities in the Caribbean, told USA Today.
Again, this is a credible source.
Matthew Riley is a credible source.
He is a historian.
You know what I'm saying?
he's calling Salak, excuse my language, he's calling bullshit.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
The Irishman was never slave because Matthew Riley, he saw the fact that the Irishman, he could take their so-called, I'm not even going to say slave master, I'm going to say their employers, right? They could take their employers to court. That means they was not slaves. You know what I'm saying? Drop that there's the Irish servants versus African slaves. For sure.
Irish servants versus African slaves.
Right.
Crucially, indentured servants were considered human beings under the law.
Say that again?
Crucially, indentured servants were considered human beings
Again,
under the law.
Again, this showed that the Irishman was not a slave because it says indentured servants were considered human beings under the law. In other words, like you were made just like I am. They had to respect you. They had to have some sort of sense of respect for you, which the black man had. They had no respect for him. Go ahead.
And just like today, you brought it out earlier, to prove to you that that you are still a slave in America is the Constitution still to this day.
To this day,
it's 3/5 of a man.
3/5 of a man. You damn right. You know what I'm saying? But the indigenous servant was considered human being
under the law. We was nothing under the law. Matter of fact, we're gonna get into what the article says about us under the law. Go ahead.
African slaves.
Again, African slaves, black, the black, so-called Black American, the Haitian, the Jamaican, the Trinidadian. You know what I'm saying? The Guyanese, the Panamanian. Right. You know what I'm saying? South America. You know what I'm saying? North America. Right. That's what we're talking about. Go ahead.
African slaves were seen as property rather than people.
Again, on the flip side of the coin.
You know what I'm saying? The indigenous slave was humans under the human beings of the law. But the so-called Negro was what?
Was rather property. Was seen as property rather than people.
Was seen as property rather than people. It was a couch out. It was a couch. They could flop that on you whenever they tired. You know what I'm saying? A footrest. I mean, we all seen the pictures as the oppressor, right? He would lift his foot up and use a board as a footstool. But the scripture says one day they're gonna be our footstool. Most High in Christ to that.
Too.
Go ahead.
Just even a point on that, like even trying to compare. Show me one couch made out from the skin of some Irish.
Yeah,
you seeing your slave master sit on Uncle Billy, sit on Uncle Jerome or whatever, and you having to go back out in the yard into the cotton fields and all that above. And every time you can get close to stepping inside, you seeing whatchamacallit, your slave master who done raped and beaten, molested, and everything else and above you. You seeing him sit on the skin or go to sleep on the skin of your brother, of your mother or father.
Right.
You try to compare.
Right. But they want you right. You're 100% right. But they want to compare. You know what I'm saying? But again, the article says that we were seen as property rather than people. Right. We was property out. You know what I'm saying? They saw them as humans.
So how could we even take their claim on being slaves too serious? Right? When their people, when their Irish historians look at them like, bro, you bugged out, bro. Come on.
You know what I'm saying? Insane. You know what I'm saying? Come on. Insane. What's the song?
Insane in the membrane. You're insane. You have no brain if you believe this. You know what I'm saying? Give me some more.
Come on, sir. Africans were racialized as black to cement this enslaved status as permanent.
They were what? Racialized as what?
As black to cement this enslaved status as permanent.
In other words, right? As the indigenous slave that was brought up so many times, they had a time. They was working for a time, or if they had a contract, they broke the law. They was in prison for a time. They worked for free at that point, but it was for a time. Slavery for us was permanent. It was forever. You know what I'm saying? Our chosen children were slaves. You know what I'm saying?
Go ahead.
inheritable and justifiable in the natural order.
Inheritable and justifiable in the natural order. What's natural order?
This is how things was going, like actually, like their way of life.
Right, right. Also, the natural order, if your father is a carpenter, right, your son has to be a carpenter, right? The natural order is as slaves. You know what I'm saying? You're going to inherit your father's chores as if you don't get shipped out.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But they want us to believe, right, that we are the same. Not the same. They've been through just as much as we have. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
They've been through just as much as we have. Give me Amos 9:8. You know what I'm saying? They just said that the indigenous slaves are humans, but we are not. You know what I'm saying? They are a wicked nation. Right. Amos 9:8, Baba Kushal.
The book of Amos, chapter 9, verse 8. Behold, the eyes of the Lord God are upon the sinful kingdom.
Look, the eyes of the Most High Power is on this sinful kingdom. The one thing you don't want, right? If something fearful is the Most High that has his eyes on you. Right. Go ahead. Example, right? As a child, when you breaking laws, right? Not only you break laws, like as a child, you doing something wrong, I'm gonna say, right? And your father just give you that look. You know what I'm saying? And you just freeze. Snap. Let me just relax. You know what I'm saying? One thing you don't want is the Most High to have his eyes on you. Go ahead.
Behold, the eyes of the Lord God are upon the sinful kingdom, and I will destroy it from off the face of the earth.
He will do what?
I will destroy it from off the face of the earth.
He will destroy them, right? Who did not look at us as humans. Right. You feel what I'm saying? He will destroy them who looked at us as who was footstools, like Barack brought up, who turned us into furniture, books, wallets, belts. You feel what I'm saying? He will destroy them. Right. Go ahead.
Sir. I will saving that I will not utterly destroy the house of Jacob.
But on the contrary to what we read in this article,
go
ahead.
Saving that I will not utterly destroy the house of Jacob.
Saving what? I will not utterly destroy the house of Jacob. And we all know Jacob in the book of Genesis, Jacob's name has been changed to Israel. Yes, sir. You know what I'm saying? In other words, the Israelites. He will not utterly destroy us, the Israelites. But then though, Shalom. Forget about it. You know what I mean? It's some more of that? Except the Lord, right?
Come, said the Lord.
Said the Lord, right? The Most High said so. You know what I'm saying? This is not Stone Cold talking now. This is the Most High. You know what I'm saying? The Most High said so, right? Let's get back to the article. Go ahead.
Come, verse 9. For lo, I will command, and I will sift the house of Israel among all nations.
I will sift. You know what is the sift? Some break down.
Kind of like a sift. I don't remember if it was corn, it was a flour or wheat, something like that, like breaking it down into more defined. Right. Meaning it was a tool. Like if you ever seen something that used to sift something, it completely separates the rendiments and rendiments and stuff away from the batch. So sifting is the Lord saying He's going to pluck out. He's going to, and then it's bodily. It's not done something. That's right, sir. It's not something that's just like plucking or whatever. It's something that's forced. You have to put some force into it. Right. He's going to sift out the house of Israel, blacks and Hispanics, and as the scriptures say, among all nations. He's going to separate. In this day, when He goes to destroy this sinful kingdom, and He's saving Israel, He's going to sift out Israel and from the rest of the other nations.
Right. And another example, if I may quick fast, another example of sifting what Barack said was 100%. Right. And another example besides vegetation or wheat, right, is gold. When the miners, you see them with that little strainer or net, they shaking it roughly. You know what I'm saying? They're trying to sift the dirt and the stones and the rocks from the actually stone that they want, which is gold.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And they're not doing it playfully or like this is a baby in your hand. You know what I'm saying? They rough with it, right? The Most High is gonna do what? Read that again.
Concert. For lo, I will command, and I will sift the house of Israel among all nations, like as corn is sifted in a sieve. Yet shall not the least grain fall upon the earth.
Yet, but not the least grain will fall upon the earth. Right? You dig what I'm saying? Drop that. Let's for the sake of time. Let's go back to the article.
Concert. This is going off where I left off. Concert. And indentured implies two people have entered into a contract with each other.
Oh, here we go again.
But slavery is not a contract.
Here we go again. This is another historian. This is not a historian who's breaking it down. Salakia, who's calling bullshit. Right? What it said in indentured employee, two people have entered a contract with each other. Slavery, they never agree to this. Who's gonna agree to watch they pregnant white be gutted? Who's gonna agree to that?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? In the South part of slavery, people don't really talk about, right? A lot of these slave masters were sodomites. They raped a lot of their male slaves as well. Right. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't only the women getting raped. Men got raped. It was what's called breaking the buck. You know what I'm saying? They raped as well. Who's going to agree to that? You know what I'm saying? Go ahead.
Quote unquote, Lisa Harris, a professor of history at Northwestern University, told the New York Times in 2017.
Again, Lisa Harris is a reliable source. You know what I'm saying? These are not my words. You know what I'm saying? I didn't write this. Go ahead.
Quote unquote, it is often about being a prisoner of war or being bought or sold bodily as part of a trade. That is a critical distinction, she continued.
This is difference. You know what I mean? She just hit you with a meek voice. There's levels to this. You know what I'm saying? Go ahead.
The lack of legal and social personhood, as well as accompanying racist ideologies, let slave owners justify the many horrors inflicted on African slaves at mass scale.
Right, they was able to do this because, just like we read in a couple of passages above, right? The slaves could not take them to court, just like the indigenous servants. Right. The Irishman can. It's a difference.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So the slave master, he could justify any wickedness. Why? Because to them, who was inhuman, just like a couple of chapters above said, who was unhuman. Go ahead.
Millions of Africans were shipped to the Americas and forced into unpresidentially crucial conditions, both in terms of scale and severity. Quote unquote. The challenge in this discourse is identifying what slavery means in the past and the present.
Right.
Hogan told Pacific Standard, again noting that the subjugation inflicted on many Irish indigenous servants may qualify as a form of slavery, but was not comparable to the chattel slave.
How could it be comparable? You know what I'm saying? How could it be comparable? You know what I'm saying? Because even though like we read again, some Irish got beaten, some Irish died, but they could take them to court over that.
You know what I'm saying?
They could take them to court. Not only could they take them to court, by their law, they saw the Irish indigenous servants as human beings. That is the key reason they could take them to court. That's one of the biggest reasons why. They saw them as brothers. You know what I'm saying? Go ahead.
Irish indigenous servants who were brutally mistreated were keenly aware of that fact. Quote unquote. The the rights that servants could claim in Barbados were often muted in the face of social realities.
The Irish servants, they was aware that even though what they was going through, they was aware, right? This is not a cut that they was aware that it was not comparable to what the black slaves, I mean the real slaves going through. You know what I'm saying? Matter of fact, let's get some scripture on that, right? Because let's get Isaiah 13:9. Because even though what we went through was cruel, right? It's gonna be a day that's gonna be crueler than that. Against who? Those who put us through all of this. I mean, including those who want to take our pain and sorrow and say we were slaves too.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Who want to say our too? It's the Me Too movement, so to speak. You know what I'm saying? You got that for me? Go ahead.
The book of Isaiah, chapter 13, verse 9. Behold, the day of the Lord cometh, cruel, both with wrath and fierce anger.
Watch, the day of the Lord is gonna come with both cruel and wrath, with fierce anger. Go ahead.
With wrath and fierce anger, to lay the land desolate.
Right? To lay the land, go ahead, desolate.
And he shall destroy it, the sinners of it. That's like it. And he shall destroy the sinners, therefore, out of it.
He shall destroy all the sinners, therefore, out of it. You feel what I'm saying?
Right.
It's gonna become a day that was much crueler than the transatlantic slave trade. It was much crueler than the plantation. Candyland. The translation, what was that? Candyland on the Zingo chain? Candyland. It's gonna be much crueler. You know what I'm saying? Drop down, Bubba Kushort. Let's get our last scripture, Bubba Kushort. Isaiah 30 verses 30.
The 30?
30 and 30.
The book of Isaiah, chapter 30, verse 30. And the Lord shall cause his glorious voice to be heard, and shall show the lightning down of his arm with the indignation of his anger.
He should show his glorious voice to be heard. Everybody's gonna hear that. Everybody's gonna know that day. You know what I'm saying? It's gonna be unforgettable. You know what I'm saying? Go ahead.
Come. And with the flame of a devouring fire, with scattering and tempest and hailstones.
And the flame of a devouring fire is gonna consume everything, right?
That's right.
Tempest, tornadoes. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Natural disasters is gonna consume everything. Right?
That's right.
Go ahead.
Verse 31. For through the voice of the Lord shall the Assyrian be beaten down.
So the voice of the Lord set all these other nations out. And that's what you're talking about, the Assyrians. But of course, what we're talking about here is all the other nations out.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So just a little recap, right? The Irish was never slaves. You know what I'm saying?
That's right. Right.
Irish was never slaves. The only slaves was us. The only slaves was God's chosen people.
That's
right? It was prophet. Let me get one more scripture. Deuteronomy 28 and 68. Right? Deuteronomy 28 and 68. It was prophesied that only we would go in captivity. We, by way of ships. Irish didn't go through this, even though the historians called them a liar. Many historians called them a liar. Right? For sake of time, it was not an article I wanted to get into because there were some historians that these young college students was threatening their lives because because they was called, excuse my language, it was called bullshit. You know what I'm saying? I really wanted to get into that, but for sake of time, I can't. Right? Give me the last question about Come.
The book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28, verse 68. And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships.
And the Lord shall bring into Egypt again. Of course, if you don't know, Egypt is bondage. You know what I'm saying? Egypt means bondage.
What?
And it will send you again with ships. We all know that the Israelites were only in bondage in Egypt one time. You know what I'm saying? And they could walk from Israel to Egypt. They don't have to take a ship. Go ahead.
Come. By the way whereof I spake unto thee.
Mm-hmm.
Thou shalt see it no more again, and there ye shall be sold unto your enemies.
You will not see your land again. You will be sold to your enemies. You will be sold. Go ahead.
Sold to your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen.
Slaves. Men slaves and female slaves.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Not indigenous servants.
Ain't no contract in there.
And there's no contract in there.
You know what I'm saying? You're not going to get paid.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? You cannot buy your way out of the contract. How do you know you can't buy your way out of the contract? Keep reading.
And no man shall buy you.
And no man shall buy you.
That's right.
No man.
That's right.
Shalom. Hey, with that, I'll pass the glass over to the priest officer of 500 Barak.
We got the security announcements via the I.S.U.P.K out of 1 West 125th Street out of Harlem, New York, under Commander General YAHANNA. New rules for brothers and sisters. When a new brother or sister comes into the school, they are off limits for 6 months. They are to be saluted only. They're here to share themselves of the word. After 6 months, if their brother or sister has an interest in a particular person, he or she must get permission from the head to speak to a brother or a sister. There's another 6 months in which the brother or sister will court each other. After this 6 month period, if the brother or sister will get permission from the head to marry, after the 6 month period, the brother or sister will get permission from the head to marry. Tithes was the commandment. You can find this in the book of Numbers, chapter 18, verse 21, and Malachi, chapter 3, verse 8 through 10. It means 10th in Hebrew, and it's pronounced ma'asherah. 10% of every penny of the increase the Lord gives you. You get to the treasury department of teacher. And the treasury department of teacher, priest fund, free will offering for priests, not mandatory, whatsoever amount you like to give. Upcoming holy convocation.